Hey, what's going on, guys? The new MGSD is here, the Barbatos Gundam, and it looks awesome. I can't wait for this. It's basically just like a squished down version of the MG Barbatos, which I'm looking forward to. I loved the Master Grade Barbatos, and I think this one looks really, really nice as well. As you guys can see, it's in kind of like a smaller sized box, not anything like super big, as it is SD version of an MG, so it is going to be a little bit smaller in statue. But the previous and first release out in this line, the Freedom Gundam before this, was awesome, and it was a fantastic kit, and I loved it, so I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so we'll check out the box here first with this really cool artwork on it, then we'll get to the contents, and of course the review of the kit. The time codes will be down below if you want to skip directly to that, but really cool artwork here on the front with the Barbatos swinging that massive mace weapon. This is going to come with all the same weaponry that the Master Grade did include, so the sword, the mace, and the cannon. On the side of the box there, just all the same stuff with all the logos and the different cropped version of the box art. Over here on the side of the box, we have a look at some of the articulation points of this, how some of the armor moves and everything. You can see a really cool pose over here with the kit, some more points of articulation around on it. So even though it's in a smaller size package, we're still going to have all the same, if not better, articulation here with this one. And the Master Grade, if you guys have built it, you know that the articulation and the build overall in general, the construction of that is just really, really cool. It's a fantastic kit, so having this now in this shorter form should be very cool as well. There it is, even kneeling there with the mace. As you can see too, there's a whole bunch of information here on the outside of the box, which is all in Japanese and in English. Over here on this side, we have a front and rear view showing the height in 115 millimeters, so 11.5 centimeters, whereas the original Master Grade would be about 18 centimeters roughly, so you can see it's a considerable amount shorter, of course. And then here's a look at the inner frame, which again looks exactly like the inner frame of the Master Grade, just a shortened down version of that. It's cool that we have Japanese and English for all these details, because there's a lot of cool information you can find around here on the box. Information about the eyes, the clear parts there for the kit, some markings as well. And then here's a look at how the kit is going to look unpainted and just built up straight directly out of the box. It looks pretty good, I gotta say. So let's go ahead and open it up and check out our contents inside here. We're gonna have all of our runners, of course, and some marking decals, I think probably, but we'll get to all that. First, I just want to take a quick look here at the instruction manual. Right here on the front, a really dramatic looking kind of render there of the kit with those glowing clear parts. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be glowing that nicely on the actual kit. And then up here is some of the specifications and just really nice artwork there on the front. On the back side is our painting guide with some nice reference images there of the kit front and back, and a bunch of little detail shots. Basically a lot of what we saw there on the outside of the box. Switching to the middle center pages here, a whole bunch more information. This part up here just kind of about the Barbatos itself with some more CG rendered artwork there. And then a bunch more stuff about the different articulation points and stuff like we saw on the outside of the box, sample poses, articulation about the different weapons over here on this side, moving gimmicks of the cannon. But again, it's pretty much exactly the same like what the Master Grade could do. Now we just have it in a little bit different style and proportion. So back to the front then, we've got our parts list at the front, and then we get right into the construction. So this does tell you what runners you're going to need for each section. It doesn't actually show the runners though, but there is a color parts list. I guess if you scan this, there's maybe a color version of the manual, which is kind of cool. So for printing, just to save money, they print it in black and white, but if you do want to have it in color, I guess you can scan this QR code and then have it on your phone if you prefer. Although for me personally, I hate looking at instructions while I'm building a kit on my phone, so I really don't like to have to do that. I much prefer having just the manual, the paper manual, but it does tell you what runners you're going to need for each step with these little markings right there. So we're moving on through the construction here. Once you get through with the body, then the weapons, and then at the very end here is going to be our decal guide. So right there in this line art, you can see where all the decals are going to go. And then our decals are going to be right here. So these are just regular sticker decals in white, gray, and red. You can see even for the Tekkaden logos, you've got like clean versions and dirty kind of damaged versions. So if you did want to make your kit look kind of a little bit weathered, you can use these versions of the Tekkaden logos that are kind of like already pre-weathered for you just by design, which is kind of cool. So there's all of our marking decals. Moving on to the runners, then we have no polycaps, so we're just straight into the runners here with runners A and B being all of our parts for the inner frame. As you can see in this kind of metallic gunmetal color here, runner A is going to be all the parts which are not doubled, so mostly like for the torso, head, and waist sections. And then runner B, since we have two of, is going to be all the parts which are doubled, so some parts there for the arms, legs, and then probably a few other bits on there as well. Runners C1 and C2 are going to be smaller here. Runner C1 in molded gold there for a couple of gold accents on the frame. C2 is going to be for our clear pink parts for around on the kit. So just to take a close-up look at those clear parts, I mean, just with all that texture underneath there, it's going to catch the light that much better, and you can see it gives them the appearance of glowing so much more compared to like what we saw with the MG. So that's really cool how Bandai is just using the texture there of those clear parts to create that effect, which works really well. Whereas a D1 and D2, which is a copy of this half of the runner right here, are some parts in molded silver, which looks really, really nice. And the runner E is our 4-color runner here with some parts in clear green, yellow, blue, and red up there at the top. Then we've got all of our white armor parts here on runner F1 and then F2, which is a copy of this half of the runner right here. Again, all the detail on these parts does look really, really nice. And then we've got all of our weapons parts here on runners G1, G2, and H. So here's runner G1 and G2 with a copy of this section there in the center. And these are all, once again, molded in that kind of metallic gunmetal, dark gunmetal color, except for runner H, I should say, is in a little bit more kind of brownish color. You can see the comparison between the two. Parts for the cannon are in a kind of brownish gunmetal kind of color there, which looks really nice. But that's it for the runners. Alright guys, so here is the kit once it's all built up. I think the Barbatos looks awesome in these proportions and just with all that detail packed into the design. Like all the detail of the master grade kit packed into these SD proportions, and not only detail on the outside but on the inside as well. There is still a substantial amount of frame that you have to build for this. I mean, just because that smaller size, don't think that it doesn't have like the full inner frame in there. And while it is very similar to the MG in a lot of the part separation and the details, there's some very interesting new differences here with this one. So let's go ahead and take a look at everything in closer detail, and then I am going to be painting the kit and showing you guys the finished painting results here at the end of the video as well, so stick around. Now the accessories are going to be pretty straightforward for this, as we don't have any hand option parts or action base adapter or anything like that. We have a couple of connection pieces right here. These are going to be used for attaching our weapons onto the back for storage if you want to use that. These just plug right in here onto those hard points there on the backpack. But our 3 main weapons are just going to consist here of the sword first off, which is just over 13 centimeters in length. It's one single piece with a couple of white pieces there attached around the handle. You can see we have a tab sticking out the side that's for plugging into the hand for a nice strong grip on that, but otherwise being molded in this kind of dark gunmetal plastic there. Does look pretty nice. Some panel lining at least around on the details of this white part would certainly help to bring out some of those details. But moving on to the mace, then this is about 18 centimeters in length. That makes it about the same as the standard height of like a 1/100 scale master grade kit. You can see we have a couple of tabs along the handle there for plugging into the hand. And if you are planning on painting this and like not using both of those hand grip points, then you could certainly cut off one or both of those tabs just to get rid of that if you didn't want to have those on there. Now this does have a pretty cool gimmick in that when you slide this down like that, it extends the handle part, pushes the pile driver at the end, it pushes it up and out a little bit, and also the 4 side parts of this kind of extend out. So let me show that to you guys again. You have to push them back in manually. If you watch again as I push the handle in, it will extend these parts out. It's a pretty cool gimmick, and just the way that whole bit kind of separates out like that. Pretty awesome looking, so that's a really cool custom weapon here for the Barbatos. But then of course we have its third and final weapon, which is the smoothbore gun here, which itself is just under 18 centimeters in length for this one as well, mostly molded in the same kind of dark gunmetal with the white accents on there. Does look pretty nice. Although it's going to be harder to see, you do have a clear green part in there for the camera as well, which is cool. And the main handle is actually on a ball joint, so you can actually adjust the angle of that front and back a little bit, and you can also rotate that onto either side as it's just attached via a ball joint there at the base of the handle. For storage, this can also be extended out. You can pull that back, swing that back around that like that, kind of pull that back that way, and then you've got it sort of collapsed anyway or folded anyway for connecting onto the back like so. So very cool. And on that note, we can take a closer look at the main kit itself and talk about some of the articulation here. Now just starting off with the head, you can see that silver part with the details in behind the clear green parts for the eyes look really cool, and when they catch the light you can see that detail inside there, which is really nice. The head a little bit different kind of design here for this with the mechanical parts in there. Really cool design for that. And even on these side panels, these white side panels on the side of the face, you have the yellow part inlaid in there, and you also have a dark gray part you can see on the opposite side. If you look kind of just past the kind of mouth part there, you can see there's a dark gray part on the inside, and then on the back side you can see there's a silver part on the inside of those parts as well. So even the back side of these armor panels is detailed with separate parts, which will be really nice once that's all painted up. For the back side of the V-fin as well, you have some detail in there. And then just in and around the face, the detail on that is really, really nice. So the head will be able to go up nice and far. We can actually kind of extend the neck. If you kind of pull that forward and then angle it back even farther there like that, you can get the neck kind of extended and looking up really, really far there like that. And you can see some of that detail on the inside, these silver piston parts right there. You have some right there. And then obviously here in the midsection as well. While we're here, you can also extend this piece in the chest to show the cockpit right in there. We don't have any seated pilot figure or anything in there. I believe if you had a 1/100 scale seated pilot figure of Mikazuki, for example, it would probably fit in the cockpit, I would imagine. I've not tested it, and you guys can let me know if you know someone or if you have personally tested it out, if a seated pilot figure would fit in there, a 1/100 scale one. It seems like it would, but I've not tried it. But on the note of the torso section, of course, we have some really nice movement here, back and forward like that, and the pistons work really nicely. Those are just connected via ball joints at the top and bottom. Bending the torso section to the side will look really cool with those pistons extended there like that. Of course, we have rotation at the base there as well. Here at the shoulder, you can kind of extend the shoulder joint out to the side a bit to be able to reach the arm really far across the chest there like that, which is really nice. And here we can see inside the shoulder armor, which I want to talk some more about here in just a second. But otherwise, you can bring the arm up pretty high to about 90 degrees, slightly more than 90 degrees. But the problem is just going to be the large shoulder armor just contacting the head there. So there's not really much you can do about bringing the arm up vertically any further than that, unless you want to have it like this or something where you have the shoulder armor to the back. But we have rotation there at the top of the arm, a nice double joint there at the elbow, which I want to show you here, will also extend this piston there at the back side of the arm, which also looks really nice there. A lot of really great details in and around the shoulder, the elbow joint, I should say. The wrist is here on a ball joint, but even in and around there, you have a lot of really nice details. The thumb is on a ball joint, the first finger is on a ball joint, and then the second, third, and fourth finger are molded together. If you're wondering if you could clip them apart for individual articulation, you can't, because as you can see here, it's 3 fingers that are connected via 2 ball joints. So if you had it so that each finger had its own ball joint, you could clip them apart. Really, the most that you can do here would be maybe to separate the pinky finger, as that's kind of on its own separate ball joint right there, but you'd have to keep the second and third fingers together, if that makes sense there for you guys. But, you know, my personal preference is always for fixed pose hands. These are pretty nice though, and the detail on them looks great. So just going back up to the shoulder armor here real quick, the way that there's so many parts layered in here for the shoulder armor, with the silver parts inside poking out through for some of these details, the yellow parts there, the silver parts going then back over the top of the yellow parts. On the inside there on the top, you have some nice mechanical detail. And then of course the clear pink part with a silver part behind that, and then with all that texture on the backside of the clear pink part, catches the light really, really nicely for this being a quite large, prominent aspect of the design there. It looks really, really nice. Going back around to the backpack before we move down to the legs, the center part will move up and down there like that. These parts will come off, and they're connected via these small little sub-arms here, which can articulate to connect onto the smoothbore gun, so those can move around as needed. Then going down to the skirt section here, each section is individually articulated, and you have some nice silver detail parts on the underside of the skirt armor there, on the front and the back. On the side sections here as well, these can move up and down and rotate. On the back side, these will move separately. And like I said, you have detail parts on the underside of the skirts, which is really cool. For connecting this onto an action base, we have this really cool gimmick up underneath, where you have this little armor panel which will slide, and if you slide that to the front, it exposes the hard point there for plugging it onto an action base. Otherwise, if you don't want to have it on a base, you just slide that back and cover that up, then you don't have any unsightly hard point right there. The hips, you can bring the leg all the way out to the side pretty far there like so. Bring it up to the front, probably going to be a bit more limited just due to the large knees colliding here with the front skirt armor, but if you kind of have it out to the side a little bit like that, then you can bring it up pretty high. Now, one new point of articulation is here when you bend the knee, this bit of knee armor actually moves separately, so you can get a nice full double bend there at the knee, and then this knee armor is separately articulated so that it actually comes apart. It's not actually connected as part of the shin armor, which it normally is, so that's individually articulated there like that. Once again, the clear pink part right there, just like in the chest as well, also looks really nice. And another thing to point out, when you bend the knee, this piece of armor here on the back of the leg folds up and kind of out of the way, so you can see it kind of folds back like that, so you can get a nice full knee bend there without that being in the way, especially when you have these legs as just these small little chibi legs. You need stuff to kind of move out of the way so that it's not blocking the articulation, but that all looks really, really nice. The ankle is on a hinge there at the base of the leg, and then the front bit of armor here can move forward and back. The toe can move up and down like so, and then both the front half and the back half of the foot are connected in this case, but those will rotate side to side. I don't mind that they're not individually articulated. Some of the times the front part and the back part will move separately. In this case they move together, which I think is better. But then underneath the feet you have nice full detail up underneath there. And aside from the whole front of the foot being able to point down, the toes can also bend up slightly there as well, so you have a little bit of upward movement there for your little toe claws. And that's it. So let's take a look at a few sample poses here with this, but I think, as you can guess, just based on everything we've seen with it so far, it's a pretty awesome kit when it's posed up. For it being in this smaller SD style of proportions, it still has a really nice range of articulation and movement with it, so you can get it into pretty much any pose that you would be able to, even like compared to the MG. There are going to be some slight limitations just due to the size and the proportions of everything, but I think the kit looks great. Just all the detail and color separation that you have there with that, combined with that nice articulation, you're able to do all sorts of cool poses, and the kit just looks great in pretty much any pose you're going to be able to put it in. So overall, fantastic kit. Compared with the Freedom, which is the only other kit out in this line so far, in the MGSD line, with this not having like the big impressive backpack and everything, it does feel a little bit more simple in comparison, just because the Barbatos is a pretty like simple, straightforward design there, not having as much like going on with like a big gimmicky backpack and something like that. So whether that's a positive or a negative point is just kind of subjective, up to you, but it is going to be a little bit more kind of simple feeling in comparison. But you have some really cool design aspects here with this one, of course, and some nice interesting changes from the MG as well. It's not just a squished down version of the MG entirely, although it does look very, very similar, of course, and just in terms of the details and the design. The fact that it comes with the same 3 weapons that the MG comes with as well could be seen as maybe a positive or negative, I guess, depending on your point of view. They're kind of the Barbatos' signature weapons, so it does kind of make sense, although I would also kind of tend to be in the camp a little bit that I kind of wish that it maybe would have included something else in there as well. Maybe some parts to make it like as one of the different forms of the Barbatos, 1 or 2 of the different forms. If it had just like a few more extra parts in there to give you some other different options to make it into a different form, I think could have been a cool aspect to have in there as well. I'm sure we'll probably see at least some sort of Bandai option set or version, something of this out later on, which will maybe have some different option parts for making different forms. We'll see. But for now, the kit is really, really cool, and I'm looking forward to getting this kit painted up, so let's go ahead and take a look at that next. And so one thing that I want to do with this kit before going in and separating everything out and getting ready to paint it is, first of all, I'm going to remove the clear parts from the chest, the knees, the shoulders, and the eyes, so that those are out. And then I'm going to spray just a very light, thin coat of primer over the entire kit, just as it's all built like this. Because of the design of this Gundam, how you have a lot of the frame kind of showing in certain areas and not, and certain parts of armor showing in certain areas and not, it's kind of hard to know once the kit is disassembled. It's kind of hard to kind of keep in mind which parts of different sections are going to actually be showing and which are not. So spraying a thin coat of primer over the whole thing, just not on the clear parts, is a good way to just kind of mark off everywhere that you know is going to be showing once the kit is all put back together again, so that once you have it disassembled, you can know what's going to show and what won't. Alright guys, and then here is my finished custom build, and a couple things that I want to talk about, just kind of about the build generally itself before I talk kind of a little bit more about what I did in terms of customizing this, is that number one, there is a gimmick in the shoulders, which I forgot to show you guys earlier, but there's a gimmick where the shoulder armor you can kind of like pull out apart and expand the armor out on the shoulder a bit, which is a pretty cool little gimmick there. And then something else I want to let you guys know about if you are planning on painting this kit for yourself is that one thing that I discovered while painting this is that some of the tolerances are really, really tight, especially in the areas where you have the little cutouts in the armor. So like where you see the little bits of frame that will poke out through the armor. It's a really tight fit on those, and I had a couple of spots where pushing those through, it's like chipping the paint as you're pressing those parts together. So just something to keep in mind. You may even want to try to sand those down, like on the little parts of the frame that stick out. Try to sand down the sides of them slightly. It's really going to be kind of difficult to do, and something that you're just kind of going to try to work around. And this was painted by airbrush, so especially if you're planning on painting it by like spray can or anything where you're going to have a thicker layer of paint, it's definitely something that you're going to have to be on the lookout for. But so yeah, otherwise my main goal for this was just to try out a different color scheme, and so just kind of after thinking about a few different options, one thing that I thought might look kind of cool and something unique that I thought I don't think that I've ever seen done before was to try a blue color scheme for this. And the blue actually came out a little bit, I think just a little bit darker blue than I originally had in mind, but I'm happy with the results. It took me a couple of tries spraying the blue. Actually, I did like my first coat and it was definitely too dark, so then I went over that with like a kind of a thin coat of a little bit lighter blue color. And that lightened it up a bit, and I think I got it to a pretty good point, and I'm happy with that. I went with the tan for the inner frame. One reason was to show off all the great details. Obviously with the Barbatos, kind of the one really cool feature about it is that it has this really intricate and detailed inner frame, so I thought having a lighter color inner frame is a great way to kind of show off all those details. And you don't really see a whole lot of the frame, obviously, once all the armor's on there. You're not seeing a ton of the frame poking through, but where you can see it, you can really see those details thanks to the lighter color for the frame. The sword as the weapon, that is from a Kotobukiya weapon set, and so that was just something I thought I wanted to do something kind of custom with the weapons for this one, and I thought that was a good fit. It was a like kind of perfect size as far as being like a large kind of buster sword, but not being too like comically large. I didn't want it to be like too ridiculously large. It actually is very similar in length to the sword that is included with this kit. It's just a slightly bit longer, so I felt like it was a really good fit to the overall size of this and the proportions with it being MGSD. I thought keeping the weapons sort of as SD as well without making them too oversized would also kind of fit the design well. And on that note, as far as the gun, that was also kind of like a last minute thing that I decided, because I did really like that as a weapon, but I wasn't sure if I really wanted to include it there on the back or not, and I ultimately did decide that I wanted to. And one adjustment or modification that I made to that was actually cutting down the barrel length of that. So if you see like the top of the barrel, or what's the end of the barrel is sticking up at the top. On the original kit, that section of the barrel is actually made up of like 4 little sections, and what I ended up doing is just cutting out the middle 2 sections, and so basically having the length of that section of the barrel to make it much shorter. And again, I thought that that just kind of fit a lot better with the overall kind of SD styling, the proportions, making the gun barrel not so as long as it was originally. Even though it is supposed to have a long barrel, I think even as it is now, it still looks like it has a really quite long barrel there, even though it's folded up on the back. But it's not as long as it would have been originally. So a couple of really small modifications there to just kind of the overall kit itself. Otherwise, it's just the custom color scheme on there. And on that note, as far as like the color scheme went too, I also added a little bit of chipping there, which you guys can see around on that. That was a kind of combination of a couple of things. Number one, if you guys remember back to my custom paint job of the Master Grade Barbatos kit, I did do some weathering on that as well. And the inspiration for that was Naoki's build of the Barbatos, where it had this really, really nice subtle weathering on it, and I wanted to try to replicate that. And so I thought I enjoyed doing that, giving it that look of like the really subtle weathering to the Master Grade, so I thought it would be cool to try to do that here on this one as well. Even less so because I really just did like a very, very minimal weathering on this, as in like it's just a little bit of chipping around on some of the parts, and that's pretty much it. But it kind of gives the appearance, just because of the paint job, that, if you're looking at it from a distance, it looks like just like a clean paint job. It doesn't have a bunch of weathering or dirt and grime and oil stains and stuff like that. I intentionally left the panel lining on the frame a little bit messier, just to kind of look like it's kind of got a little bit of that kind of oil staining around on the mechanical aspects a bit. But anyway, from the distance, it looks like relatively like a clean build. It's only once you look at it more closely that you can kind of see the evidence of the little bits of chipping and weathering around on the aspects in kind of a little bit more detail, and can kind of appreciate those details a little bit more only once you look in kind of closely. And I think it actually ended up working pretty well. While I was in the middle of doing it, I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I was thinking like, I don't know if this is really going to look good, but I'm not sure. So of course, the top coat was, as always, the miracle step, the saving grace. Once I got that top coat on there and saw kind of like how it was looking, I was like, okay, all right, I think this is gonna work. So I think it ended up working out. It's something unique, and that was my goal with this, was just to make a unique looking Barbatos, basically just with the color, but then obviously made it a little bit more unique by kind of the weapon setup there as well. And so yeah, I'm really happy with how this came out. I think it ended up looking pretty cool. It ended up working after kind of a lot of doubt on the colors and the chipping, and I was not really sure exactly how it was going to go, but I think it came out pretty good. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. How do you think this turned out? What do you think about the kit in general? It's actually rather serendipitous that on the day that I'm finishing up this kit and finishing up the recording of this review and posting the review here for you guys, that the kit just arrived here at USA Gundam Store. So if you guys did pre-order it already, your pre-order should be shipping out, assuming that your order doesn't also have something else that's on pre-order that hasn't arrived yet. Or if you guys have not ordered the kit yet and you would like to order it, you can now order it from USA Gundam Store. So the link will be down in the video description below. Like I said, today we just got our shipment in from Bandai here, so if you're still on the fence about picking up this kit, I would highly recommend it. Just like the original Master Grade before it, this kit is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and even having built and painted the original Master Grade, at times working on this kit, it did feel a little bit sort of like building the same kit again. Obviously, it has much different proportions and different details and everything, but it's somewhat familiar, but it was definitely fun and refreshing to build the kit kind of again in a different way, sort of, now that it's in the MGSD form, and definitely a really fun kit to customize too. I think one that you could very easily customize, sort of similar to how I did, with like kind of minimal effort by just making some small changes to the weapons or changes to the color scheme, and you could have a really cool looking, very unique build such as this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, taking a look at the kit and then my custom build of it. Thank you all so much for checking out the video today, and like I said, looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on the build down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for all of your support, whether it be liking the video, commenting, subscribing. It all helps out quite a bit, and so I really appreciate it, guys. Until next time, I hope you all have a great day. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.